6, verse 17. The verse tells us, B'nai Gershon livni v'shemi l'mishpachotam. The children of Gershon, you have the place? Chapter
3:16.
The sons of Gershon were Livni and Shimi according to their family. Uvnei Kahas, and the children of the Kahas were Amram, the Yitzhar. So we're listing all the lineage of because we want to say the simplest way to read it is why we're listing the lineage here, because Moses and Aaron were selected as the leaders, and we want to know why they are worthy to be the leaders. We want to know their lineage. Before there was, you can imagine, before people started questioning like Barack Obama, where is he from, his birth certificate. This is an old question that everybody questions leaders. Where are you from? What's your yichus? Of course, the whole irony is that in all mythology, the leader is always somebody who comes from tainted lineage of some sort. Even King David comes from a Moabite. So there's this irony that the greatest story ever told is of the person who was born to suspect lineage who rises to the cream, and that's King David. King David came from the Moabites, and okay. Anyway, so
the difference between, I have to say this, I'm sorry, Rabbi. The difference between David and Barack Obama is that David never wanted to be king, and Barack Obama wanted everybody to praise him and worship him as if he was God.
Okay. All right, but we'll leave the politics aside because I don't want to. Then we'll never go anywhere with the Torah. So, Rabbi Yosef, we're not political. I'm just giving an example of that. This is an old story that people need to taste. That need a lineage. We're going to give you a pass on the politics because you're moderating the channel, so we need your help. Okay.
I'm Canadian.
And you're Canadian, yeah. B'nai Kahas. I mean, it's true about every political figure nowadays. That most of them really are striving for leadership. But King David, I will say this about King David. King David, obviously a big tzaddik, but it just so happens to be that every single person who needed to die in order for him to become more powerful managed to die while he was on the opposite end of the world with the perfect alibi. So I don't know, but I'm just pointing that out. V'nei Kahas, and the children of Kahas were Amram, the Yitzhar, v'Chevron, v'Uziel. The children of Kahas were Amram and Yitzhar, Chevron and Uziel. Ushnei Chayei Kahas, and the years of Kahas's life were Shalosh Ushloshim U'Ma'at Shana, 133 years old. And we have 2 more verses before we go look at the Rashi. Uvenei Merari, so the Gershon had sons, Livni, Shimi, and Mishpotam, Livni and Shimi, and Kahat had Amram, which we're going to care the most about, and Yitzhar, because he caused us big problems also, because Korach comes from Yitzhar. So we need to know that. And then the sons of Merari were Machli, Mushi, Elah, Mishpachot, Halevi, Tolosan. These are the Levites. Then we go back to Amram. Veikach Amram at Yocheved Dodato. Amram takes his aunt Yocheved. You're not, by Jewish law, by the way, from later Jewish law, you're not allowed to marry your aunt. A nephew, an uncle can marry his niece. And in fact, the Talmud seems to encourage that. What?
That's not creepy at all.
There was a member of our when I was a rabbi at OAV, there was a member of our congregation who married his niece. Yeah, and they were big supporters. Yeah, he's no longer alive. They got the family got into a big fight at the end, but anyway. But they were married for many years. It was his second wife, and Amram took Yocheved, his aunt, as a wife, Vatello at Aaron and Moshe, and she gave birth to him to Aaron and Moses. What about Miriam? It doesn't mention Miriam. We'll see why. Ushnei Chayei Amram, and Amram lived for Sheva Ushloshim Machana, 137 years. So now let's go to the Rashi. Rashi says, verses 18 through 20, the lives of Amram and the lives of Kahas. Micheshbon Zerah, she says, from this calculation, Anu Limedim, we learn about Moshav B'nai Yisrael Arba Me'ot Shana. From these calculations, we can learn that the Jewish people were 400 years in exile. Shamara Katuv, that the verse states, Shelo be'aretz Mitzrayim levada hayu, Elam miyom sheno Yitzchak. When the verse says, when God says to Abraham, your descendants will be slaves for 400 years, Rashi is telling us that counting doesn't start from when they came down to Egypt. That actually begins from when the day Isaac was born. So therefore, it's going to include the time of Isaac's life and Jacob's life, and also their time in Egypt. So that's how we get to 400 years. And we figured out, this is the calculations. Kahat miyordei Mitzrayim haya. Kahat was one of those people who went down to Egypt. He was on, so to speak, the Mayflower. No, not the Mayflower, the reverse Mayflower. Chashuv kol shenotav. If you count Kahat's life, Ushnot Amram, and then the years of Amram. So Kahat was how many years? How many years was Kahat? It says he was 133, and Amram was 137. And then you have the Shmonim of Moses, and then you have the 80 years of Moses. Lo timtzaim arba meot shana. You won't find 400 years. So there's no way that they were actually 400 years in Egypt, because the Kahat was 133, Amram was 137, Moses was 80. I don't know. I was not too good at math, but I know that's not 400. And not only that, and many of the years were overlapping. So we're clearly very far from 400. That's what Rashi says.
What's it mean? Many of the years were overlapping.
So because Amram lived 137 and Kahat was 133, but you can't say 133 plus 137 plus Moses 180, because Amram, well, who knows, maybe he was 50 when he gave birth to Moses. So therefore you can't count, it's called double counting. So you can't count it that way. Okay. All right. So now, okay, Yocheved Dodato, Yocheved is aunt. Achas Avui.
Why do they bring this up now?
Why is who bringing what up now?
Why are we talking about the birth of Moses? We've already been talking about.
Oh, because that's a good question. Why are we talking about the birth of Moses now? So that's what I said from the beginning, that Moses is now he wants the people to listen to him. They must have been questioning his lineage, because they're saying, who are you? You're an Egyptian. They're saying to Moses, you're an Egyptian. You're not one of us. You think you got the bona how do you say bona fides? I'm from New York. We always say the bona fides. So yeah. So yes, Shepsel.
How many years was it between Yosef and Moshe?
It's not able to be calculated. We don't know exactly.
They forgot, and the Pharaoh wasn't the same Pharaoh.
Well, the only way we can figure it out a little bit is because Yosef was the same generation as Levi, and Levi's children were Gershon, Kahat, and Merari. So basically from Joseph to Moses was less than 400 years. That's what Rashi is saying. We know it was less than 400 years. We know that they were actually 210 years in Egypt. That's what we learned from other sources. So the Talmud says that. So they were 210 years in Egypt. So we would have to say from Joseph to Moses, well, till Moses was born was 80. It was 80 when they were let out. So it's 210 minus 80. But we don't count the 210 from when Joseph went down. We count it from when Jacob went down. And Jacob and Joseph came down before Jacob 17 years. Okay, so that's one reason why we need to know, because they were questioning Moses' lineage, presumably. But going back to your question, my dear friend Steve, that there's another reason. And the other reason is that Moses was expressing his own inability to lead. He said, they're not going to listen to me. Who am I? Who am I to lead? And so now Hashem is saying to him, I'll tell you who you are. You're not just coming yourself. You're the descendant of these great people. You could trace your lineage back to Jacob. You have the ability to do it. You're the real deal. You're a blue blood. So it's for both of them. So now Moshe married his aunt. Achas avuhi. It means the sister of his father. He married the sister of his father. Bas Levi Achos Kahas. She was a daughter of Levi, the sister of Kahas. So this is, by the way, is very similar to the Purim story, where Esther marries her uncle, Here is a very similar thing. Okay. So now, Ubnei Yitzhar, now we're being told about the children of Yitzhar. There's Korach, we're going to remember that name for later. He's going to lead the rebellion. Vanefeg v'Zichri. Nefeg and Zichri, they don't have too bright a future. We don't really know too much about them. Ubnei Uziel, and the children of Uziel were Mishael, Eltzafan, v'Sisri. Okay, so then wait, did I skip over? Okay, Vayikach Aaron, and Aaron took what?
It's a fun when Uziel became the
Nasi.
of all the Levites.
Yes, so we're going to need that. That we're going to need for later. But first, we learn in verse 23. Aaron takes Elisheva, the daughter of Aminadav, the sister of Nachshon. We haven't got up to Judah's tribe yet, but Nachshon is from the Judahites, the tribe of Judah. He takes her for his wife. They're setting up the whole scene now. We're going to need to know who Nadav and Avihu and Elazar and Tamar are. So Aaron marries Elisheva. So what does Rashi say? Okay, so this is relevant to you, Steve. For your brother's yard site, the Talmud tells us in Bava Basra 110a that if you want to marry a girl, how do you know if you should marry her? How do you know how your children will turn out? Look at her brothers to see how the children will turn out. That's what the Talmud says. It's really freaked out my sisters. I'm not even kidding. So Aaron takes, and so why do we need to tell? That's what Rashi is saying. This is why we need to know that she was the sister of Nachshon. This is also, so now what comes along?
On Moses is this second, right?
No, but then said Moses has, where does you see Moses here? It doesn't say his wife.
I thought I had Moses before.
Moses, it hasn't said his wife yet. Before, prior to this, it said he took Tzipporah as a wife.
But Tzipporah didn't have brothers.
Tzipporah, she was one of 7 daughters. We don't know that she didn't have any brothers. Well, I'd like to thank Meyer. He's usually always here sitting and studying, but today he was making borscht for the Rebbe's yard site. For the
Borscht, Russian borscht.
For the Alter Rebbe's yard site.
Other kind? Well, the ones with short ribs.
And what do you think? You think he'll be ready tonight?
It's ready now.
All right, we'll eat some borscht
Not
after.
tonight, but you can have it early. The Rebbe won't.
Meyer went to the organic market to get the beets. So we thank Meyer for the borscht. So then what happened next?
Still a spring co-op.
Thank you.
Put an ad in for them.
Thank you, Meyer. So then we're on chapter 6, verse 24. Ubnei Korach, the children of Korach were Asir, ve'Elkanah, ve'Avi Asaph, elo mishpachot haKorchi. Korach's children were Asir, Elkanah, Avi Asaph is the family of Korchi, and Elazar ben Aaron, and then Aaron's son, listen to this, V'Kachlo mibenot Putiel, took from the daughters of Putiel, Lo Isha, to be a wife. Matera lo at Pinchas, and she gave birth for him for Pinchas. These are the heads, the leaders of the Levites for their families. Now, I just want to point out, it says from the daughters of Putiel, Rashi, very powerful Rashi here. What does it mean, the daughters of Putiel? Aaron took a wife, Elazar took a wife from the daughters of Putiel. Mizera Yitro. He married one of Yitro's daughters. Umizera Shapitem Agalim Lavodazar. He married one of, why is he called Yitro? Rashi saying is another name for Yitro. Yitro is Moshe's father-in-law, but another name for him is called Putiel because he fattened the calves for idolatry. Umizera Yosef, and she was also from the seed of Joseph. So she was somebody who basically was a descendant, a girl who was a descendant of a union between Yosef's children and Yisro's children. And Yosef was also called Pitem pit yitro. He overcame his inclination. So that's what Rashi is saying. Now this is so ironic. Why? Because Elazar gave birth to Pinchas. Pinchas is the daughter of Putiel. What do we know about Pinchas? Remember what happens to Pinchas later on? When he sees one of the prince from the tribe of Shimon fornicating with a princess from the tribe of the Midianites, he sticks
through them.
He sticks a spear through both of them. He can't handle somebody marrying or having a relationship with an idolater. And he was being taunted. Pinchas, when he did this, was being taunted. You come from an idolater, because that's who he comes from. He's from the daughters of the Putiel. Pinchas himself was somebody who came from an idolatrous background.
Where does Rashi get this though? What's his source for this idea that she used the family would fatten calves for idolatrous sacrifices?
Do you want to know what is Rashi's source? So Rashi's source, his specific source for this is from Baba Basra 109b. But I'd like to say that so he takes it from the Talmud. But the point is that he say, okay, it seems so random. It's so random. Like, why is it, you're skeptical, or the rabbi's just making it up? No, I know you didn't say that. You did not say that. You didn't say that. But every single teaching the rabbis will make, even though it might sound outlandish to us, it's based upon a textual oddity. And the textual oddity is, why does it say that he takes a wife from the daughters of Putiel, and it doesn't even say their name? So there must be something significant about Putiel. That's why he's saying, and now on top of that, we see that there's a relationship between the daughters of Putiel and that Pinchas, the zealot against intermarriage, zealot against idolatry. What produces him? So in a brilliant rabbinic midrash, they're saying the zealot came from this union with the daughters of an idolater.
Because he was an ex-idolater as opposed to Cosby, who was leading the men of Israel to idol worship. So that's the difference, meaning if people really don't want to be confused by facts. If Pinchas wanted to answer them, he would have said exactly that. Yes, my grandfather was Yitro, and yes, he was a Kohen Midian, but he's not like that anymore. And he converted, and he joined the Jewish people, and he was asked by Moses to lead us in the desert. He's different from Cosby and all of her.
Yeah, for sure,
not
he's
real
different.
sisters, but sisters who are leading the Jewish people to Baal and to Baal Peor.
For sure, he's different. So the point is, I'm just saying that this rabbinic midrash is based upon this textual oddity. Like, we need to know more about these daughters of Putiel. And anytime you have daughters, they're either incredibly righteous or incredibly sinful. That's like the rabbis don't. I'm not saying in real life. I'm saying in rabbinic terminology. Why else would you mention the daughters? The daughters are never mentioned unless something really bad or really good happens. I mean, where else are they mentioning daughters in the Bible? Only Dinah, because she's assaulted. I mean, they're not going around mentioning daughters. As a default, we're not going to mention the daughters. We mention Miriam because she was the prophetess. So the daughters are never just flies on the wall. They're either heroes or villains. That's the point. Shoshana, yes.
Yeah. So Miriam's born first. Then you have Aaron and Moses. Moses is tossed into bulrushes. Aaron's not. And at some point they come back together and they're a family and they're all, God's talking to both of them. How'd they get back together?
So what happened was, God said to Moses, this was last week's portion. Moses says, I can't speak. So God says, Aaron is on his way to see you. And he said, he's coming to meet you at the mountain of God. And they reunited at Sinai. That's one of the proofs that Sinai is in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. No, that is.
What prompts Aaron? I mean, God says, go find this.
God must have told Aaron to go. Aaron was a prophet. God told Aaron, you've got to go see Moses.
But where was Aaron all this?
Aaron all this time, he was in Egypt, but the Kohanim, the Rashi tells elsewhere that the Kohanim, the Aaron was from the tribe of the Levites, they were never enslaved. They were doing they were studying Torah in the yeshiva. They were never enslaved. They never entered into Egyptian society. They kept true to they were in a kollel, so to speak. They were in Shiva Selimelech. Yes, Deborah, we cut you off. I'm sorry.
I just why Moses ended up in basket and?
Oh, because what happened was, that's an excellent question. Why was Moses in the basket? Because what happened was the decree to kill the boys that Pharaoh made happened after Aaron was already born. And the decree was just for a short period of time that matched the astrological prediction that the leader was going to come from the Israelite boys who were born or the Israelite or Egyptian boys who were born during this period of time. So therefore, Moses was the one who was born during this dangerous period. If you read the thing from Steve that I posted on the Shiva Selimelech WhatsApp group, you'll see a whole nother layer there, which is a whole interesting theory about this issue. Okay, so we're on to the, yes.
Suggests that there was probably more than one settlement.
More than one settlement?
Yeah.
Tell me
Maybe
more.
the settlement that was enslaved was the one closest to the capital, and the others were still pastoral. But in the Egyptian territory.
So Aaron was having.
So Aaron was on the pastoral.
Mm.
Which is, what Jacob was essentially given, right?
Yeah,
Originally.
they're in Goshen. Yeah.
Notion. So, I mean, that would suggest that there's the bigger number of Israelites, some enslaved. and
Well,
some not.
that's a good point because the rabbis say, Rashi is going to tell us later on that of all the Israelites in Egypt, only 20% left. Well, 80% remained in Egypt and they ended up either dying or assimilating. And this, of course, is always, makes sense. Like if we got the redemption today, if Moses came down today and told American Jews, it's our chance, this is our time to return, I'm leading you out, I don't think he'd get 20%. I don't think Moses would get 20. I'm sorry. I don't think Moses would get,
even
from Canada.
And the Gemara says that they went to the circus and to the theater.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's just do one more verse. So it says, verse 26, Who Aaron Moshe Asher Amar Hashem Lahem Otziu et Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim Al Tzivotam. This is Aaron and Moses, who God said to them, lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, Al Tzivotam, according to their, I don't know how to translate that word Tzivotam. Rashi is going to tell us what it means. So we're going to have to pick up this Rashi tomorrow. We're going to start here, chapter 6, verse 26. Tomorrow, God willing, Hashem will give us the strength to meet tomorrow and study again. And for now, we'll dive in. You have a memory